Who am I and who are you? The ultimate questions for who we are as whole beings experiencing on this earth in this human journey. And to find the answers to these questions, we are going to be sitting down and exploring the minds for the wisdom and knowledge of the layers that make up our beings. From the mind, to the emotions, to the body, and to the astral with the light body. We will be exploring these different multi-dimensional aspects of who we are as the I Am presence in this world on earth, in the human experience. We'll get to have fun, cracking smiles, and diving deep into the knowledge with different psychics, intuitives, shamans, coaches, teachers, practitioners, and many more different beautiful conscious souls of the everyday life to gather the information we need in order to unravel these layers and become more aware and present in ourself as the whole I Am presence that we are. And I'm very grateful for this and really look forward to the journey. So thank you all for tapping in and being a part of this. And I am your host, Marcus, aka Christolight, and I will be on this journey with you from the beginning to the end as we travel through the process of clearing layers. Grand rising, grand day, and grand night, depending upon where you are on this planet Earth in this moment. Thank you all for tapping in, and thank you all that will be tapping in ahead of time. I am live here on Instagram TV, your sacred host, Marcus aka Christolight, for our 7th episode of the Process of Clearing Layers series, this online holistic space. And for episode 7 of the Process of Clearing Layers, we are going to be diving very deeply into the fine details of creation, the multidimensionality of the universe, and our own being and self. Through these multidimensional knowledges, wisdoms, and keys, we will be exploring different ways of alchemy from ancient to modern times that our special guest, or I should say our authentic soul guest for episode 7, has been dedicating his path and life to over the years. Our authentic soul guest for this episode, Alchemy Entrepreneur, is a brother of mine that I've known for around 3 to 4 years now. And he's been very, very dedicated to the studies of alchemy, as well as esoteric and self-knowledge. Our authentic soul guest, Brandon Jones, he is certified by the International Alchemy Guild in the history of alchemy, practical alchemy, and spiritual alchemy. He is also a student of the Book of Life, All Things Above and Below. He teaches 2 different styles of self-awareness, and the first one is self-defragmentation, and the second is source code recovery. Self-defragmentation, for those of you that are curious, is taking the wealth of energy, information, and consciousness within ourselves and putting it into order in harmonious and optimized systems that allow for the greatest natural flow and growth on all dimensions of our being. Source code recover, for those that are curious. Source code recover is using our wealth of energy, information, consciousness, and tangible resources to dive deeper and more fully within ourselves and into the world in order to gather that which helps us to awaken and grow ourselves and others. So these are the 2 primary ways, styles, forms that our brother, Brandon Jones of Source Channels, that is going to be joining us here in a moment as our authentic soul guest, has been really putting his passion and dedication into to help us further understand our being and break down the ins and outs of our multidimensionality so we can be in our self-empowerment and construct the reality that we wish aligned with our higher self. Along with these 2 different styles or ways of understanding, Brandon has been sparked recently to begin his own authentic version of what he calls the conscious or alchemy entrepreneur, called Entrepreneur 2.0, which is the balance of action and attraction. And I'll allow him to go more in depth and in detail for you to explain what this is. So thank you all for tapping in. Thank you, brothers and sisters, kings and queens, gods and goddesses that are here in this space to support and show love on the process of clearing layers. I am now going to invite technical difficulties. you will need the latest version of Instagram to join. We'll get this all figured out and have him up with us in a moment. Alright, so our guest is working on getting the update right now, and then he'll be joining us here shortly in a moment. Well, in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and pull us a collective card while we're waiting. It's a great opportunity to do so. And thank you all for being patient. He's not really a social media person very much. He doesn't hop on social media all the time. So he's never really live on Instagram or posting. He's very reserved and keeping himself within his space with his family. So he's just gonna get this update and then he'll be joining us. And today our sponsor is the Light Language Oracle. The Light Language Oracle, Chloe Metcalf. And I've said it before, this is one of my favorite decks. I really love this deck. And I actually got it gifted from our sister Energy Soul Child, who was in the crowd. Who's in the crowd at the moment. And the energy of this deck is amazing. Chloe Metcalf, she is a psychic channeler, and she sits down and channels each one of these different guides and these cards. And these are all guides that she connects with, and each one give her a message of energy that they share and help with. So each one of these, and whichever one gets pulled today, is a guide that she channeled and brought into our fields for us. And welcome in, everybody. Our special guest, our authentic soul guest, I should say, will be joining us in a moment. He is just getting an update on his Instagram, and then he'll be here in just one moment. I'm looking at a picture right now and it says, well, it has a picture of a squirrel and the squirrel's looking up and it says, "Hi there, human. Did you know I am consciousness just like you, but in a squirrel body? We are one, my brothers and sisters." That's right. The animals are consciousness as well. So the card we have today for our collective reading on this super new moon, and happy super new moon, everybody, in Pisces. We are grounding and anchoring into new beginning energies, We are closing off old chapters. And actually, if I believe correctly, we just ended a few-year cycle. So there's a lot of refreshing energy coming in, along with a lot of closure and letting go and releasing taking place in our spaces. And just remember, the more we resist what no longer serves in our space and is divinely being led out of our frequency field, the more we're going to have to deal with the repercussions of attachment and holding on to frequencies that are not healthy for us. Alright, so we got the goddess Wajet. Goddess Wajet, number 23. Oh, look at that. Goddess Wajet. Must be aligned, guys. Represents letting go, new realities, and change. Wow, would you look at that? Here in the super new moon in Pisces, the Egyptian snake goddess, Wajet, often arrives in your life when you are about to or have just experienced a shedding of your old self. Major life changes are bound to happen when she shows her face to you. Many people have snake phobias, and Wajet is the perfect goddess to help you face your shadow self. The snake is a very powerful totem animal that can talk to you about Kundalini energy and activating your inner power. Wajet brings messages of an eternal cycle. All things go through a cycle of death and rebirth, and they are never reborn the same. Just as you are experiencing the change that will bring you to a new point of self. Do not fear change. It is how we grow and develop. Wajet asks you to step forward with the knowledge that all is changing for the best. Look at what could change for the better, and the fear of Wajet will fade away like a distant memory. Wow, look at that. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens. You really cannot make this up. No, we get this divine stalling, or what seems like a stalling, with this episode, with our guest, having to get the update. And, I mean, you just look at that in itself, you know, he had to get an update, and then during that update, we get informed by the goddess Wajet about letting go, new beginnings, new cycles. And right before that, I brought up the point that we're in a super new moon in Pisces at 1 degree. And we're closing out a few-year cycle and going into new beginnings. I mean, you can't make it up. You really can't make it up. But anyhow, thank you, Goddess Wajet. Light Language Oracle deck for anybody out there. And it is now time to begin the process of clearing layers, episode 7, Alchemy Entrepreneur, with our divine, authentic soul guest, Brandon Jones, here to talk about Entrepreneur 2.0, as well as his alchemical studies and practices and breakdowns of the knowledge of self. I am your sacred host, Marcus, aka Christolight. Thank you all for tapping in. Grand day,
brother.
brother.
Hey, blessings, brother. Can you hear me all right?
Can hear you all right.
All right, cool. How you doing, man?
How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
You're welcome. And I am
Yeah,
doing very balanced, man. I feel clear and balanced. And yeah, I'm just really happy to be here and share this space with you and allow you to be able to shine some of your authentic light for this collective.
thank you, man. I really appreciate you holding this space and grateful for all that you do. I don't know if you saw my message, but I was saying that when you drew that card, it was card number 23, and it was exactly 1213, so 1213. So
Oh, wow. I mean, wow, I mean, the synchronicities, on top of, the super new moon being today in Pisces, closing out a few year cycle. I mean, we're rolling, man. We're rolling into new chapters that we haven't really embarked upon in this incarnation of our beings. And yeah, what a way to open it up. Talk about some alchemy, talk about some self-knowledge, and how to empower and expand with our own being and align with our harmony. And I couldn't ask for a better brother to be on the other side of the screen to talk about this type of topic today. I really love what you do and what you dedicate your path to. It resonates heavily with me, and it's it's very beautiful, and it's also a very patient process of really understanding the fine details of who we are and what we're in when it comes to existence. So thank you for your travels. Thank you for your work. Thank you for what you've dedicated yourself to.
thank you, man. I appreciate that. And I feel like it's interesting because, like we kind of started a little bit of work together a few years back, and I feel like things are really coming full circle. It's like, we like the in breath, out breath, we kind of created a space and, started discovering ourselves and our message and everything. And I feel like, we kind of hit this like point where it was time that, we all went out into the world and, found all the pieces of, like, we kind of created this blueprint, or not created, but realized the blueprint, and then, recognized all the pieces of who we needed to be in order for that to kind of be a reality. And now, I feel like even if it wasn't necessarily planned this way, we all kind of went out into the world, and like, over time, everything's kind of like pulling back together, and it's just, just beautiful to see that process unfolding.
Yeah, man, that's right. Just like kind of gathering in at the school, the mystery school of knowledge. And now we just go out to the different corners and start spreading the knowledge, just like we did back in ancient Egypt and Atlantis and Lemuria and so on and so forth. And, it's no coincidence. It's all a cycle. And a lot of us been doing this for many lifetimes together on this planet. And it's all coming to a nice point of awareness for us to really continue to build in this infinite reality that we're in.
And what a better day to reconnect.
Ashe. All right, man. So for those of you guys that don't know yet, yeah, me and Brandon connected a few years back. This was back in, I think, 2019, I believe. And I actually created a group called Galactic Guardians on Telegram. I think it was Telegram. Yeah, and it was a lot of us around the world, a lot of us conscious minds coming together. And we were just sharing knowledge, enjoying space, community, things like that. And we were really starting to exchange these keys and knowledge with each other. And he hopped on my podcast, Sacred Light Conversations, which you guys, if you saw the preview, I put it in the preview, and you guys can watch our episode. We went over the 7 chakras for beginners. You just go to Sacred Light Healing and Wellness on YouTube, and then type in seven chakras for beginners, and then you'll find it. He goes by Spectrum Exponential in that moment in time. And yeah, it was a really good episode. Thank you for being a part of that.
Thank you, brother.
My honor. Now we are here today to talk about some of what you've been embarking upon since then, and what has really been your pathway that has led you to this stage of awareness now, and sparked your passion for wanting to serve this knowledge and this fine detail of the micro and macro level of the universe itself to the collective. And I want to begin. So you were certified by the International Alchemy Guild, and it was a history of alchemy, practical alchemy, and spiritual alchemy. When did this take place, and could you tell us a little more about this?
Yeah, so well, this is about maybe two or 3 years ago. I actually went through. There's a it's just a website online that you can go where they have. It's the International Alchemy Guild, but it's ran by like Dennis William Houck, um, Kevin Bartlett, and a lot of these guys they went to what was back in like the 70s. It was Paracelsus University, and it was actually the last remaining lineage that was passed down directly from Paracelsus, who was like the father of modern medicine and one of the world's most renowned alchemists. And so this one flame was carried and passed down to us, and the school ended, and it was like the late 70s, I believe, and like a few of these guys actually went through it and learned the actual like process of spiritual alchemy and like the laboratory alchemy, and they're still like passing this information along and refining and finding deeper nuances. And so they started what is called the International Alchemy Guild, and a lot of it is like they've taken and developed courses that are teaching the mindset. When you're looking at these like these alchemical images that are telling the story, and it's telling the process of gathering up the elements, we call it like the crude metals, and taking and transmuting the lead and transforming it into gold. And it's there's many layers to this process. It's something internal, external, it's something literal, it's something metaphoric, it's something spiritual, it's something that works on the layers of civilization as a whole. So they're kind of like giving this like fundamental understanding of how to like look at these symbols and start to understand what it actually means, and how to implement that like into our own lives, and then begin to step into the laboratory and be doing the physical work with the like the metals, which are basically our seven chakras, are a reflection of the seven main metals and the seven visible planets. And it's like basically all connected. So I really, if anything, it was just kind of a crash course in all of that. Really, foundational pieces of like not necessarily what to think, but how to think alchemically. And I don't know. It's just really, it was a kind of a jump off point. Like I had all these different things in my life that, tools and teachings and everything like that, and they were just this kind of toolbox, but I didn't really know, what I was building with all of it. So I stepped into this container. It took all of those pieces and kind of funneled it all in together, and I kind of like started to realize, all of this comes together in a laboratory of the soul, and there's a specific way that we can begin to bring all of these pieces together, harmoniously and synergistically, to become more than like the sum of the parts of ourselves and each other. So if anything, it was just kind of it was one of those like pivotal moments in my life where I went from being all of these scattered pieces to like channeling my mind into a realization of who I am and what exactly I'm here to accomplish. I mean, if anybody's interested, I highly recommend it. It's really intriguing. They'll go into the history of going all the way back to Kemet and Thoth, and like how these wisdom teachings were planted into our civilization from Atlantis and passed down to fan the flame of consciousness of the barbarians, and raise us up from this uncivilized mindset to remember ourselves and our connection with the stars.
Beautifully said, brother. Thank you so much for sharing with us that part of yourself and what that was like that you embarked upon. And yeah, that sounds very, very wonderful. And if you're someone that is into the esoterics or like to really expand and take in knowledge and that fruit of wisdom, that could be something very useful for you on your path. And um, so it also says that you are a student of the Book of Life. Now, is the Book of Life a specific text or teaching, or is this something that you're saying as the overall life of the
Just
universe?
just the overall book of life, man. And I say that because um, you, you know, it's like in order to like summarize everything that I study, it is the book of life, because I'm here to work on all seven chakras, our root chakras, like that intensity, like physical training and like breaking through like the hard things of life. And then we have the crown, which is like this expansiveness and like connection with the spirit. And I think everything is important on all parts. It doesn't matter, yoga, dance, strength training, language. I try to study a little bit of everything because I mean there's keys everywhere. So I feel like I'm um I don't know, what do they say, I don't know, I'm aware of a little bit of everything and a master of nothing. So but I feel like there's beauty in that as well. So I just try to um figure out what's most practical to my life and like use just enough of it to move myself forward and be holistically balanced and healthy and happy, and be able to produce something of value for creation. So just think, I try
I
to
agree.
tap into all the tools.
I agree, and that's definitely where you resonate heavily is, yeah, I like to study texts, I like to study ancient books and other things, but for me personally, my greatest teacher and my greatest text is being present in the moment and paying attention to the codes and experiences that are taking place around me and within me in the moment. And that's something we have in every moment is life ever present, which is the ever living book of life, so to say. And yeah, it's really incredible what we're in. And speaking of what we're in, um, there's two specific type of ways that you like to break down and give a little guidance and teachings of this multi-dimensionality that we are a part of and in. And, and the first one is called self-defragmentation. Would you like to break down and describe to us what self-defragmentation is?
Yeah, of course, brother. So I think the most like relatable way I can describe it to most people is like if you think of like old school computers, you used to like download a bunch of music and play your games and everything, and things would just be going smoothly. And then you just kind of like hit this wall, and then your computer just starts getting slower and slower and slower, and then you can't even like get your game to load, you can't download the song, and you're like, what's going on? And so it's because the way that the computer would save information, on like an actual like hard drive disk, it's like this disk would spin around and it had this little needle just like a record player. And then, it would like scratch onto a specific part to store a bunch of information, and that information would be stored into like blocks. Like, so if you stored a new song, all of those pieces would be stored together in one space. And if you downloaded a new game, those would all be over here, like right next to each other in one space, and everything would be consolidated. But then over time, like once you're like adding new information and erasing things, like it'll take those blocks and it'll make a bunch of like open spaces in the middle, and then there's just these weird gaps. And then eventually you reach this point where like you're downloading this new song, and like there's no blocks that are all next to each other, so it's just like scattering pieces all around, and it'll get in where it can fit in, you know. So it's like now we have this, you know, eventually we have this like chaotic mess that, you know, the computer is like struggling. It's like it's struggling to load your program because it has to go over here to load a little bit of the program, and then it spins the disk a few times, and then it goes over here and loads a little bit more and then spins it, so it's jumping all around and it gets confused and like chaotic. So we had to go through this process that was called a defragmentation. And what this would do is like it would spin that disk and it would grab a few pieces and it would set them over here, and then it'd spin it around and then it would grab a few more, and then it would start moving through so that it would take all of those chunks that were related to each other, and then it would put them all together, and then it would take all of your free space and then put it over here in one area. So now like everything, you know, if it wanted to read a specific amount of information, it only had to spin a little bit, get to that area, and then it could consume all of that information at one time. And then it could, you know, so it was able to store and retrieve information efficiently and effectively. So now, basically, in my own life, you know, I was going through this period where I was just consuming just massive amounts of information, taking in every book I could read, and like I started to like get like into like pattern recognition, like seeing like these underlying patterns within what I was reading. And once I started to do this, like my brain could pick those pieces out and consume information faster, because I'm like, rather than just like learning the words, I'm recognizing the symbols that are like beneath the words, like this kind of like holographic like image like standing out of the book, and my mind is just like taking these huge pieces of information. But like now I'm like taking all of this stuff in. I'm like psychology, business, spirituality. Like I, you know, my first child was just born, and like, you know, I'm going to work. I'm trying to provide a living for my family. I'm trying to figure out how to put all this stuff together in a practical way to be useful for my life. And it's like, man, I just like hit this like dead end. Like my brain just like shut down. I couldn't take in any more information at all. Like I was literally like, I felt like useless, like frozen, like, you know, how do I learn all of this stuff? How do I have all of this wealth inside of me and I can do like nothing with it? Like I can't create anything of value for people. I can't like connect with my family. I'm just like, I'm frozen, you know, like just like an old school computer that's just, you know, it won't do anything. You're trying to control alt delete, and I'm just like, you know, what am I doing here? And so basically I reached this point, and you know, I just went out into nature one day, and you know, I was like, I just sat there for a minute, and I was so frustrated. I was so like so much anxiety, and like, you know, I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. Like, you know, I could barely get myself to go to work and like push through the day because my brain is just fried, and you know, I couldn't like do anything with all this information. So, you know, I just went out to nature, and like, you know, I wanted to like just like start hitting things, and I was like, no, that's not balanced. So like I'm standing there, and like I just got into me. I just started running, man, just running as fast as I could, right? Until the point where like I felt like battery acid was like running through my veins and I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was gonna die if I took another step. And when I reached this point, man, it's just like this layer of fog inside of my mind just kind of like disappeared. Like it's like the outside world just didn't matter anymore, right? So the only thing that mattered was inside of me. Like, am I going to be able to take this next breath? Am I going to die right now? And like once I reached that point, and all this baggage of my life just started to like disappear, like I came to that moment of clarity, of peace and balance, then, you know, like I started to actually have like space inside of my consciousness to start moving pieces around and see a little bit further of what needed to be done in my life. And so I started like moving through these different layers, and as I moved through more layers, by like working with my body and my mind in different ways, I started to realize like how to actually take all of that stuff, all of that blocked energy, all of that information, everything, and I started to figure out how to actually start to like move all of that stuff around to consolidate it into like places where I could actually access it and store it and like make sense out of everything. And so, you know, um, in that moment, I started out with this like intense, vigorous workout, like root chakra kind of stuff. And then I moved up and it just became like a natural process. I moved up to the sacral chakra. And when I felt that baggage fall off, man, I felt like this liberation and I felt like just dancing and like flowing. And as I did that, it just cleared another layer. And then I moved up to the solar plexus and I started like feeling these aches and these pains in my body and I started like stretching. And I could see as I was stretching, like my mind was also stretching and I was like expanding. And I moved up to my heart and I just like realized, you know, now that I have this space, like I realized I need love, man. I need to like love myself. And I'm just like massaging myself and pouring this love in. And as I'm doing all this, just like this space is just opening up inside of my head. Next, I'm in the throat chakra and I'm just breathing and I'm doing this mantra and like, and I feel the vibrations and I feel my mind just easing in this tension and it's like opening up more and more and more. And then I'm like in my, I'm in like my brow and like now the space just opens up where there's just like this creative visualization. I can see like this light and this like images just evolving in front of me, and as I'm like thinking, finally I reach this point where it's like I'm content with being creative, and then finally I just reach this point of just pure stillness, like wow, I've just like done all I can do in this moment, and now I have this grace, like this space where I can just sit here and be completely content. And like in that moment, like I felt like I connected so deeply with spirit in this pure, beautiful, blissful state of meditation. And I just sat there like I was done, man. Like everything I came here to do, it was like it was done in this moment, right? And then just allowed that connection to grow. And in that moment, like there's just these flashes of insight that started coming, and like now these empty spaces that I created in my consciousness, like spirit was just allowed to flood in and start writing new codes into me. And so really like that's what it's all about, man. Like self defragmentation is like, how do we take, like we've been taking in so much information like into the factory of our mind over our lives, but there hasn't been a rhyme or reason most of the time for where we've been putting things or why we've been putting them there. But like just like any factory, if you start collecting many machines and many resources and just putting them in random places on the floor, then things start spilling over, creating a mess, and you're trying to get the valuable goods that are pumping out of one machine to put it into another, and you're tripping over stuff and dropping things, and it's super frustrating. But then like once you start to like recognize what the machines are, and there's a specific order that you can put it in, so information comes in here, goes through a specific process, some kind of resource comes out of there that's perfect to put in the next machine. So if you put that machine right there and it just dumps into it naturally and you don't got to do anything, you start creating these feedback loops where you can take like the simplest, most mundane resources, pieces of information, energies from reality, and you can like pump it through all these systems, and then you just come out with these great, amazing things of value that you can just like are nothing to you, and you just pour that into the world, and it becomes this like equal value exchange. I'm taking crude raw elements of creation, pumping out beauty and light and value all around me, and then things just start magnetically coming to you, like seeking what you have and being willing to exchange the resources that you need to put in on the front end to pump out, so like you become like as you like heal this factory within, like these channels between like inside of you start to like grow and extend into the world, and it's like everything around you becomes an extension of you, like where information, energy, and resources are flowing from outside of you into you to fulfill your needs, and then out of you to fulfill the needs of the world around you, and it just starts to coexist of this this ebbing and flowing system. So I mean that's essentially what it's all about. So um I mean that's the what, but I go more into like teaching people how to accomplish this and figuring out where are you stuck in your life, and where do things feel like out of balance or not flowing, and like there's specific tools and there's specific ways of thinking that are like tools and systems that plug in to these different areas of life. And once you plug that in and implement it, energy just starts to flow. And then it goes beyond that to where it doesn't just flow, it comes in as one thing and it comes out evolved and expanded, and we just continue to build on that.
Wow. Wonderfully articulated. And thank you for flowing that with us and to us. Yeah, that's very relatable, I'm sure for quite a bit of us out there. We tend to come across a lot of information and study a lot of books, esoteric teachings, cult knowledge, and other things. And we kind of like find ourselves in this this loop, so to say, of just drawing in knowledge after knowledge after knowledge after knowledge, and not really knowing what to do with it or how to integrate it properly. And I definitely trust that what you just explained is very, very helpful for people out there that are experiencing that. And later on, towards the end, I will definitely ask you, where people can reach out to you and get a hold of you if they have questions. And wow, just thank you for your journey and being so honest and transparent with us. It's very powerful, and it's also really clarifying for the I am, which is what we all are. And a lot of us experience similar things to what was just talked about. We have a few questions down below from the viewers. And let's see. Energy Soul Child, when did your chosen form of alchemy first resonate with you?
I feel like it's hard to say, but about honestly, probably like 8 or 9 years ago, I actually started like reading the Doriel version of the Emerald Tablets, like listening to like that audio book over and over, and I don't know if I realized it that at that point, but like something inside of that already, like I feel like I gravitated towards that and it gravitated towards me, and I feel like that started transforming me. And like Marcus just said, he feels like a lot of you guys as well have experienced similar things to what I've experienced, and I know that to be true. And like I've kind of like taken a different stance on building than what a lot of other people I feel like are doing at this point. I've had this kind of revelation that like everything that we need in this world is already existing like inside of ourselves, inside of each other. Like everything that we need to make this world free and beautiful is already here. And the only thing that's stopping that from being a reality is our lack of ability to define it, right? So a system, like basically a system that cannot be defined cannot be optimized, because like if you cannot define a system, you cannot contain a system, then like any time you're trying to fine tune, like you cannot like adequately measure the changes that are happening, because there's always changes happening outside the realm of what you perceive. So what I've realized is that like I think of it like think of like a cell phone. A cell phone has like many different applications, many different features, right? And so all of us are building out and learning about applications and features within inside of this cell phone, and we're all like, well, it's so much more than a cell phone, obviously, but I don't want to like minimize that. We're all building features and options and tools and everything that all apply to like one thing. And so the only thing that people don't realize, like, because they're working on all these different features and all these different solutions and all these different things, like they think they're working on something different than everybody else that's around them. But like once somebody defines like, hey, what you are building is an application, and that application can work inside of this cell phone. And you're working on a flashlight. Look, we can take that flashlight you're building and plug it in. It can be a part of this cell phone. Now you're building this, touch screen. That touch screen can be a part of this cell phone. And now when people start to look at it like that, they're not existing in their silos. They're realizing that we're all working together to build this one thing. And I think that's, I feel like my chosen path and everything was something that I was invested in long before I realized what the bigger picture was. And I feel like, realizing like my chosen path of alchemy is something that's only happened within the past few years, but I feel like that was something I always carried with me. And so like right now, like I said, my biggest thing is not so much about like building things, but just trying to define what we're already building together so that we can start to like connect people and say like, look, we're not building different things. We're all building parts of the same thing. But first, in order to do that, we have to say, what is that one thing? And so I guess that's why, we're all here, to discover what that is and recognize our unity within that. Oh, I can't hear you, Marcus. I don't know if it's just me that can't
I'm,
or
I'm on mute.
okay.
Wonderful answer. Thank you for that clarity. And good question also. And next question is from her as well. And she said, where do you see these practices taking you in the next few years? Ooh, good question again.
So I feel like that's a very interesting question to answer as well. So like for me, I feel like by working in the realms of like action, like down here, in the realm of attraction, like up here, like years ago, like I started to like go within and have these revelations of this kind of like blueprint of what I felt called to build within my life. And with that, like in the beginning, that was existing like way up here. It was something that like when I tried to explain to other people, they're like, well, that's kind of a pipe dream. And like it was like just a main idea. Like I'm just giving you a few sentences. That's the main idea of what I want to create. And then over time started to like map out like a blueprint or like an outline to that started to develop. And then after that, like those different parts of the outline began to get filled in with like paragraphs and then like fine details and everything like that. And so from my mindset of action, like living in the physical world, like down here, like there was a time a few years ago where I was like, man, if I had $100,000 in like 6 months just to work on this, like I could bring this, beautiful thing into reality. And then it came to the point like a few months later, I'm like, man, if I had like 3 months and like $50,000, I could do it. And like I spend a little bit of time. I'm like, I'm gonna go try to find some like resources. I'm gonna try to find somebody to invest in this. And I realized it was harder to explain it and find people to invest than it was just to build it at that point. So I kept developing and I kept thinking and I kept taking and like bridging these two realities, like what I'm building down here. Like I was growing up the ladder of success in the world of action, and then in the world of attraction, this vision that I wanted to bring into reality was getting closer and closer to being able to manifest. And so then I finally, I reached this point where I was like, man, if I had like 8 weeks and like $5,000, I could like nail this, right? And so now, like I feel like I've gotten to the point in my life where it's like I feel like I don't need anything. Just like all of these things, I've just integrated it. It's become a part of who I am. And this flip switched. I realized that like it's not like before I used to have this mindset, like I need money and I need time to be able to help people and build these bridges. And finally, this point came when I realized, look, I don't need money or time because I've become this. And like I just need to live. And in that, like people are naturally coming into my life and we are exchanging value. I'm learning things from them and there are things that I can offer in exchange. And like when this happens, it brings me joy and it brings resources into my life and it brings harmony and balance and flow and excitement. And so like I feel like at this point, like I kind of have come to a place where like um I don't think so much about like what could be in the future because like I've kind of like taken a step back from trying to be the orchestrator of my own dream and realized like we are all building this dream together. And so like it's not so much about like the logic that I can offer to people of like how to create beautiful things and how to get many resources and all these things into their life, which is like I feel like it's something I'm fully capable of doing. But like I've realized like that scares me in a way because it's like I can like teach people how to draw in massive amounts of power and resources, but if I'm like teaching that to the wrong people and they're using it for the wrong reasons, all it could just like speed up the process of destabilization of the beauty that we already have. And so like I've started to like step into this new realm of like living from the heart and like just soulfully connecting with people and building love and building up from that foundation of just like creating peace, creating love, creating connection and faith and trust in humanity. Like trust is what we need to connect and work together, and that's really the only thing that's keeping people from working together. You know, many people have massive amounts of resources and wealth, and they have the ability to draw other people in and say, hey, let's all build this together. Let's all take this vehicle and move it around and do the greatest good we can. But most people don't trust each other. So that's the only reason it doesn't happen. So, you know, I've realized like all of the wisdom that I have that I could potentially share with people is already out there. But the love that is needed to actually bring, you know, all the stuff together is what we need to be really incubating if we want to see it all come together in a way that's actually gonna, you know, be of benefit. So I don't know what that looks like because I've lived the past, you know, my whole life from the mind, and I feel like it's only been in the last like year that I've started to actually transition into my heart space. And so it's like this whole new realm of discovery that I can't even fathom. And I know that there are other people that have pioneered the paths of the heart space, and like that's where, you know, I need to learn. And that's where like in reality, like I guess that's a good way to put it. It's like I guess over the next few years what I see is like taking the stuff that I've learned and pioneered in the mind space and planting that into the people that have pioneered and like excelled from the heart space. You know, like the people that have lived their lives thinking, you know, I don't need like great things. I don't need power. I just need love. Like, and those are the people that need to receive the power. And I guess I see myself actively seeking out those people and trying to plant seeds of wisdom and power into their hands and see what they do with it. Because I know that they're far better off to be the leaders and to be, you know, the ones with power in their hands, even more so than myself. You know, I trust them more than I trust me because they've proven themselves, and you know, I've lived from the mind more than anything. So
Wow, that's a very humble place to come from, brother man, with all the wisdom and knowledge that you have. Um, wow, I'll take a moment to process that. That's that's pure beauty right there, you know, just pure humbleness and authenticity. And thank you for being authentic with us and sharing yourself. Again, that's just that's phenomenal to hear. And we we all have our place and our role, no matter what we choose to do. And even if You're not the one to be at the forefront of putting stuff out and, leading the new systems and things like that. Just your mind alone with what you've been able to anchor, what you've been able to experience and bridge into this reality is just as important as the leaders that stand on the forefront of materializing it together. And yeah, I just want to emphasize that, we each play a role in this, no matter what it is. Some people are to be leaders at the forefront. Some are to be the minds that engineer it. Some are to be the bridge for healing. Some are to be the ones that go out and go through all of the scrapes and bruises to gather the wisdom. And it all serves a purpose, and it all is unified in what we are and what we're doing here. And it's incredible stuff that you've been saying. And there's something that I really related upon with you talking about just really getting things out there and then allowing it to be able to fill itself out with trust as you go along the path. That's something that I've done quite a bit, and it's been like a signature of my soul on this realm. Is I'll get a download, and then I don't know fully like what the download is about, but what I do know is like the general outline of what it is. So what I'll do is I'll either have my phone, my laptop, or my journal, and I'll write down basically whatever it is that is at the surface that came through, and then I'll just leave it at that. And then next thing I know, maybe a day later, maybe a week later, maybe a month, maybe a year later, I'm drawn right back to it, and then I have the rest to fill it in. Or I have the general outline, and then I come live on here, or I start a Zoom class, or start creating something online, and then the rest of it just fills in and downloads while I'm doing the creating. And it's a wonderful technique, I'd have to say, is just at least getting the general outline of what the download is that's coming through you. So if you have that general outline, your consciousness is going to be familiar with it and know what it is, because your higher self gave it to you for a reason.
Absolutely, man. Like a seed, just got to keep watering it.
Yes, exactly. And that's where that trust comes in, just like you were talking about with trust, is when we can trust in the divine, in the universal all, whatever you'd like to call it, you can really allow yourself to be patient, along with having temperance of not needing to rush something, or not needing to trip over yourself, feeling like you need to go full speed into creating something, or thinking that something has to be done now because it's going to be the end of the world if it's not. And that used to be me years ago. I used to think it was just like a race with myself to get these things created and get it out there and share it for the collective. But over time, since I've slowed down, really got rooted in my root chakra and grounded, and became more patient, I've noticed that I'm actually finishing things. I used to never even finish things. I used to start stuff, never finish it, and then I'll be on to something else, and then the same thing will continue to repeat. But now I'm actually starting things, finishing it, and then going on to the next, and it's just been a nice cycle continuing to flow naturally. So yeah, very relatable things, and thank you. Next question I have for you is your second form of this wonderful teaching or demonstration of the multidimensionalness of ourself, source code recover. Do you mind stepping into this realm and sharing with us what source code recover is?
Yeah, of course. So I guess uh it's a good space to talk, I guess, more in just general terms. People talk about like DNA fragmentation, like the loss of the recollection of who and what we truly are. And so like basically like what a lot of people don't realize is that our souls, that our being in general is fragmented in many different pieces. Like even our like conscious awareness is divided against itself. So and that's where a lot of people struggle. Like um I guess if I go back into like the like younger years of my life, and I look at when I was trying to, like you were saying, you feel like you're accomplishing more things, like you're bringing more things together to like a holistic point of completion. Like early in my life, I never did that either. I was never able to really just complete things. And a lot of that was because I had conflicting desires and feelings and everything inside of myself. So I had one part of myself that I do want to do this, and then another part of myself like screaming out, no, don't do that. And then like I would, always be doing things that were in conflict with each other, and it was like a violence to myself. And I feel like we all do this in tons of different ways. It's like, whether it's like going to work at a job that you don't like, part of you saying, no, I don't want to do this, and then another part of it saying, yes, I need to do this so that I have money, so that I have resources, so that I have food. And this kind of like trickles down into smaller and smaller fragments throughout like our consciousness that permeates through all of creation. And if you think of our root chakra is like all of these tentacles that are reaching out, and they're connected into all of these different parts of the world, all these different parts of creation. We're drawing in things that are toxic to us, we're drawing things that are beautiful to us, we're drawing stuff that's neutral. So we're expending energy to draw in things that have no value, but at the end of the day they don't do anything good or bad. So essentially, what this is starting to like realize that we're able to take control of all of that. Like we're able to take all of these pieces, all of these fragments, and start connecting them into one thing, so they begin to work together for a unified purpose. And if you think of it as like think of like all of the archetypes that exist inside of you. You have the warrior, you have the healer, you have you have the artisan, you have you know the masculine aspect, you have the feminine aspect, you have the creator, you have the destroyer, you have the balancer, you have everything. Every possible archetype that you could think of is something that's existing inside of you. And in reality, we have to bring those into wholeness, into at one-ment, into unity. And so like it's just a process of beginning to do that, like not like even extending beyond the left and the right hemisphere of the brain, because like you have the masculine side of your brain, you have the feminine side of your brain, and then on this side you have the creator, and on this side you have the destroyer, and in the middle between those two you have the balancer, the homemaker. You have and then on the next layer you have the four elements: earth, air, water, and fire, and these are archetypes that tie in. So how do we get all of those things to work together in unity, in one? So they said in like I don't know, this isn't the Bible, but I've heard before it like goes back to like Kemetic teachings, maybe like the Book of the Dead or something. But um basically, like a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. Anything divided against itself is brought to desolation. And that's the way when we recognize that oneness, and we bring all of the energies and all of the consciousness and all of the archetypes into one accord within ourselves, yes, then we can walk on water, then we can part the sea, because everything inside of us is agreeing. And the more of those pieces that come into agreement, the more power that we have, the more far-reaching that is into creation. And like I said, it's like a village. I think of it as like voting. If you have if you have a village and like everybody's on one accord and somebody's like, hey, you know, we have these resources, like let's use these resources to build this because it's going to bring more resources, and everybody's like, yeah, let's do it, like that's going to get built really quickly. And like once it's built, like people are going to work together to make sure it's managed well, and that plan's going to flow and it's going to come to fruition. And those resources are as good as coming in, like as soon as that idea is cultivated. So within ourselves, like we have to create this foundation. It's like, you know, if your foundation is built, or there's this other parable. There was a man that built his house on the sand, and the storms came and the winds blew and his house was destroyed, right? And then there was a man who built his house on stone, and the storms came and the winds blew and his house was not even shaken, right? And that's the way it is with our consciousness. When our consciousness is fragmented like the sand, anything in life, the storms of life come and the winds blow, it doesn't matter what we're trying to build on that, it's always torn down. But when we start to create that seed inside of ourselves of unity, and then start to gather up these fragmented pieces of our consciousness, that stone, that philosopher's stone, begins to grow and evolve inside of us to become this unshakable foundation, and we build our eternal selves upon that, then it will never be destroyed. So you know, so this is the process of recognizing, where do we begin with that seed, and how do we begin, like how do we begin to look out and recognize the fragments, draw them in and integrate them into a whole so they become unified, so the sand can become the stone.
Gotta tell you what, man. I've been eating a lot of fruit in this last hour, because this is some soul food right here. Brandon, beautiful metaphors and analogies. Very well articulated for the human mind to understand. Oof.
Yeah, thank you, brother. And like I said, you know, I've just taken a different approach. Like I don't have like ownership over any of this. All I've done is looked out at you and like the person next to you and all of our friends and all of our tribe, and like you know, Wayne Gretzky says, I don't go where the puck is at, I go where the puck is going. So all I've done is like looked into the future and I've said, what is everybody running towards? And all I've done is tried to define it, you know. And that's all this is like, when I look at the books and I look at what you guys are doing, it's like it's where we're all going. You guys are already doing it. It's just once you become conscious of it and put a name on it, it becomes that much easier to keep doing it.
Oh man, once again, wonderfully articulated. Yes, 100% resonates. And I'm gonna give you guys a moment, everybody out there, to process a little bit and really think about it, what's been said. And if you guys have any more questions, feel free to drop them down below next to the comments in that question mark bubble. And we actually have another question from Energy Soul Child, and it is filtering out all that resistance. Filtering out all that resistance. How quickly after that shift that you described did you see a change in intuition?
Well, so for me, like I feel like, so if we're talking about the time where I was like out in nature and I was like going through this kind of transformation,
Yep.
felt like the switch was instant. And basically what it was is that like I felt like in a way my consciousness, my energy was being pulled in so many different directions, like all these things like reaching out and like ripping me apart from like, you know, from the inside out. And so I feel like in that moment, what really happened was I recognized this like kind of like singularity that all of these tentacles were like flowing into. So now it took all of these parts of my being that were once being ripped apart and now started like pulling them towards like a central point. And so I feel like in that moment it was instant, but like you know, I use this analogy a lot too. It's like going from driving a car to like driving a train. It's like a car, it's like you can zip and flow and like move all around and accelerate, really fast. And then, once you start to like hop in a train, it's like you can like carry a lot of baggage. Like you can bring a lot of stuff along with you, but in order to like get that up to speed, it takes a long time to build that acceleration. But once it's up to speed, it's really hard to like stop that. So like I feel like it was instant, but in that instantaneity, whatever that word is, like I felt like my life like way slowed down because I was able to just jump around to all these different things, but then I recognized this point of singularity and my life just came to like a halt. And then it became like and now like over time, like I feel like, like I have this understanding and this way of like funneling everything together that's creating more and more momentum. Like I feel like it'd be really hard to like throw me off track. But like I said, even though that revelation was instant, it took a long time to build that momentum because, even the practices and like the ideas of like how to actually take those fragments and that inertia and that everything and put it together, like it took a long time to refine those things. And like I don't know, like I feel like now, um, like I can explain it so simply and like offer the tools and like help people integrate it like rather quickly. But like the process of me figuring that out, like it took a long time. So it was, I don't know.
Thank you.
So yeah, it was instant, but it was like slow and gradual.
Thank you. Yeah, and it reminds me of like the analogy of like the five spiral, the spiral of life,
Hmm.
where you spiral all the way out, and then next thing you know, you're at like full capacity of that cycle of spiraling, and then boom, you just like break through, and you're right back at 0 point again, and
Hmm.
then it's like a gradual build back up, and then it's really like up to you with your choices and actions of how fast that spiral starts to go. And
Yep.
kind of like what you were talking about with the car and the train is, you're in that car going high speed, it's going to keep on spiraling really quickly. But if you're on that train, it's just going to gradually build. And then once it reaches that maximum point again, it's still going the same balanced speed and then starts back over. And it's like not as much impact on the being because you're staying more steady and balanced and in harmony with yourself. And yeah, I like when we talked about that yesterday with the car and the train, and just looking at how it's a lot easier to if you hit a wall or you hit a bump with a car, you're gonna feel that. You're more likely to go off course a little bit and to kind of flip over possibly. But if you're on that train, you're going steady, consistent. You can even walk around the carts a little bit, check on everybody, see how everyone's doing, take a look out the window, look at the scenery,
Hmm.
have a seat again, drink some water, and just really nourish yourself along the way and feel everything for what it is in the moment. And yeah, it's really interesting when you experience the two different styles that we're explaining. There's of course multiple infinite different ways that you can go about it, but these are just two different ways of looking at it. And for everyone out there, there's going to be some very powerful teachings and Zoom spaces coming out between me and Brandon. Just as a heads up, you'll be able to really go in depth and be in a space where you can be on camera with us and ask us in the moment questions and be able to really dissect this information and knowledge and how to apply it to your everyday life. And then last question from Energy is, did that sudden shift freak you out, or did it freak you out than, okay, did it freak you out more than the feeling ripped apart feeling?
No, honestly, uh, it's weird. I guess I could go into like a whole other story about this. I mean, I try to make it quick, but when I went through this process, like I had actually experienced this before in my life. Um, and so, I mean, basically, when I was when I was about 21 years old, I'm 32 now, but when I was 21 years old, I was actually stabbed in the heart. And so I was like in a fight and everything, and I got stabbed, and then I had this like, you know, crazy experience. Anyways, so I remember like myself like dying basically. And when this happened, like there was just this chaos kind of going around me, this fear, this anxiety, and then like in an instant, like I felt like, my body was kind of gone, and then I was just in this like warm like waves of like peace and like and bliss. And like everything was just okay. Everything just kind of like made sense. And then like fast forward about maybe like a year and a half later, I had been going through like so much pain, anxiety. Like I feel like this veil between my physical reality and like this spiritual world was kind of like torn away in something that I didn't expect, right? And so like I just had this super bad anxiety and all kinds of stuff, and like my life, I was like going down the wrong path, and like things were just messed up. I reached this point where like I one night, like I just felt like this darkness was like closing in around me and my life, and I was doing all the wrong things and like just messing up. And one night I was like in my parents' basement, and I was like tying the sheet like up in the rafters, and I was like getting ready to kill myself. And it was like it just felt like this shadow was just closing in, and it's like all of the rest of the world had just like disappeared, and I was in this one room, and that darkness was just closing in more and more and more and more. And like I was just like bawling my eyes out. And then the door opens up, and my dad walks in, and he's like, man, he's like, I don't know, it was like 3 a.m. He's like, I don't know what it was, I just felt like you needed me. He's like, can we talk? So I was like, yeah. It's like it was like a huge relief. It's like when he opened the door, like this pressure just like flooded out. It's like, yes, like please. So we went and we talked, and like sat on my bed. He talked to me for like maybe an hour, and he's like, man, can I just ask you one thing? It's like, before you go to bed tonight, like, will you please just pray? And it's like, yeah, I will. So I was sitting there on the bed. He's like, you sure you're okay? It's like, yeah, I'm gonna be all right. And he like walks out, and I just like get down on my knees, and I'm like, God, I don't know who you are. I don't know like what book is correct. I don't know who like your people specifically are, but like I just need to like know you. And like as I'm praying, like this book is like shown to me, and I like walk across the room, and I pick it up, and like somebody had given it to me a few years ago. It was called what is it called? I forget what the book was called, but it was by this guy's name was Charles Colson. So I start reading this book, and this guy's like, I'm sitting in this like old-fashioned, like it looks like an old-fashioned theater, and I'm like looking down, and there's this one woman on stage, and she's like singing this like gospel song. And as I'm reading it, like my Spotify comes on and just starts playing this like classical music, and like I keep reading, and he's like, so this woman, she starts singing like an opera singer to like the glory of God. And as soon as I read this part, like this woman starts like singing opera music on the song on my phone, and I just start like, I'm like bawling. And he says, that's the first time I ever felt that the Spirit of God was with me. And like in that moment, man, I just like dropped down, and like I was just like crying, and like this darkness that felt like it was like crushing down on me just like whoosh, just collapsed down. And then like in an instant, it just like exploded like this like sun from like inside of my heart. And like everything just like the atoms in the air around me, everything was just like sparkling. And like I just like took this deep breath, and I was like, oh my God, like that was, I don't know. And that's like like from that moment, like I was just like, I gotta go to school to be like a pastor. I'm like, I gotta teach people. I gotta like explain this to people. I don't know what this is. Like, I gotta share this. And I went to school. I was going to a university for a while, and I started learning about like pastoral ministries and studying the Bible. And then over time, I started learning more about like the esoteric wisdom, and this stuff started appealing to me. And then when that happened, like I kind of like, stepped away from the church a little more and started going within myself. But I went down like all these different paths trying to like understand what I experienced and explain it. And that's why I started like learning about psychology and philosophy and, all these different things. And like when I was like trying to consume all these different things, that's where I got like clouded. That's where I got like constipated and stuck. And like, so that day when I started like running and like that layer cleared away, and then I started like dancing, and then that other layer, and then like layer after layer just cleared away. When I finally got to that place of peace, it was something that like I had already experienced before. So it was like finally I remembered like how to like come home. And then that revelation came. It's like that's why all of these years I had forgotten. Like that's why I was studying all these things, because I was trying to remember, because this like place of like being cleansed, this place of clarity and peace and like connection to God, like that was gifted to me in those moments. I went back into my normal life and it was clouded back over. It was like it became dirty, and like I lost that. And I was always trying to find my way back to that. And then when it happened, like once I cleared those layers and came back to that peace, it became something that like now like I can always go back to that. Like it's something that cannot be like taken away from me unless I give it away. I go through life and I start thinking the wrong thoughts and doing the wrong things, and this dirtiness comes back over my energy, and I have to like break that down. And that's when I'm going through like this intense vigorous workout. I'm just like, everything I can pour out, because it's like everything, like giving up to where I feel like I'm gonna die at my very last breath. And like in that, like it's like a fire that burns away like all of these things that are connecting me to the world. I forget about the world, and I'm just like, I'm literally about to die. And then all of my focus comes within. And then once I'm within, now I can start working up those layers of the chakras, like flowing up that channel into that point of like that singularity and that connection with source. So when I experienced that, it wasn't scary at all. It's like I was being ripped apart, and then it like snapped. I like came to this point of like going back within myself, flowing up that channel, like into this point of singularity and this connection with source, where it's like everything was just like floating in this like ocean of love and clarity, and like and in that space is where the insights came to me. Is like everything, like things are okay. Like I just need to like hold on to this stillness, this peace, and just like try to like draw that back into the world and share that with others, and like expand that, and like let that be the flower from which I live. So no, it's not scary. It's like the complete like opposite. And I mean, and it's something too that like, even I feel like what I tasted is just like one small drop of nectar. And it's like each time I go in deeper, like I realize that there's so much more richness and so much more depth to experience in that. And I know that others have gone far deeper into that than I have. And I feel like those are the people that have, true treasure like within themselves, and treasure to offer the world. And and so like that's why I tell people all the time, is like I feel like I'm just a man with a map, but there are people out there that like emanate the gold, like that divine treasure that is what I actually seek. And those are the people that I want to be able to connect with and sit at their feet and like learn like what are the next steps. It's because I've only learned to like open the door, and like I don't even hardly know where to go once I get in. So but it's beautiful, and that's all I know.
Thank you so much for being here today and sharing your path and honesty with us, man. It's been so humbling to hear, and thank you.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate the space and the connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to say, um, there is no one with a greater measure of treasure than you, my friend. And, and we all have equal amounts of treasure for this world. And I trust that you will fully embrace and remember that your treasure is just as valuable as these people that you speak of. And you're just refining it and cleansing the shadows from the treasure so that treasure can be in full blast for the world around us. So just remember that, my friend. Remember that.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that.
Because I know your words and the things that you do, um, they serve a lot of value in my consciousness, and they inspire me and remind me of who I am. And also, I don't want to say push me, but they align me with continuing to be my best self and continuing to share the knowledge and wisdom that I have the way I am for the world by seeing the things that you do as well. So, last thing I have a question about is this project of yours that you are working on, Entrepreneur 2.0. Would you like to share with the collective what this project, Entrepreneur 2.0, is and what it stems from?
Yeah, of course. So, well, actually, so the larger project that I'm working on is called Source Channels. And, basically, Source Channels is just realizing that we are this channel that is, this connection of these fragments of consciousness, drawing them into the center and then, building them out and like creating a house, putting it all together. And so, we are the fulcrum through which that exists. We are the bridge between, the father and the mother, like of the father and mother God, whatever you will call them, the divine masculine and feminine aspects of Source Creator. And Entrepreneur 2.0 is just my way of defining, you and me and, everybody else that strives on this path to build that channel. Realizing that, but maybe honestly, maybe it's really the original entrepreneur, and whatever the entrepreneurs of the mainstream world are doing today are, a new, like, distorted version. So maybe it's really Entrepreneur 1.0. It's just like realizing that everything that we're doing on a soul level, like with energy, and consciousness, is the same thing that people are doing on a physical and mundane level with like money and businesses. And I don't mean any kind of like disrespect or to minimize the value of what, the spiritualists and soulful people are creating and what our mission is here. But when you go to the archetypal idea, like the blueprint, the general idea of what an entrepreneur is somebody that's taking energy, consciousness, resources, and investing that to build systems which serve a purpose that, directly respond to the needs and the desires of the world and the community around them in order to provide some kind of like service, resource, or whatever that may be. So, Entrepreneur 2.0 is just saying, basically, we're learning what it means to build those systems, to leverage and risk our own energy and our time and our consciousness in order to invest that into something that expands beyond just this dimension, into all dimensions, to, create a holistic ecosystem or economy of consciousness, energy, spirit. We are building a new economy of energy, basically. And so that's what, Entrepreneur 2.0 is, the way I see you and I see me and I see everyone else. So essentially it's just helping people to recognize that and equipping them with the tools in order to accomplish whatever it is that they feel called to do. Because, you know, when it comes to an entrepreneur too, it's a general idea. Like an entrepreneur creates a business, but it doesn't mean our businesses look exactly the same. It's an artistic expression of the way that we see the world and the way that we see fit to solve problems and provide solutions.
That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And wow, you know, it's so amazing how similar a lot of our resonance is with these things that are in our minds and we've been embarking upon, between me and you. And it's really how I envision, you know, quote unquote work and entrepreneurship is really placing the value of the energetics and the heart and love and passion that we are putting into something rather than basing things off of materialism and forcing people to do things because of bills and other things. I feel like if we can step more into valuing each other for the passion and love and dedication of what we're putting into our craftsmen and our works and serving the collective to help each other be our most highest self or most balanced self, that should be right at the forefront of what we're acknowledging and amplifying that and boosting it together as it truly helps us bring harmony into our lives and our being.
Absolutely, man. It's like, you know, it's like the way I see it is like, I can take and like explain a lot of things in a business sense that really apply to the development of the soul. But, you know, if you look at the stock market, the S&P 500 over the past, you know, 20 years, and if you look at major businesses that were existing and dominating for 50 plus years, like a lot of these businesses are starting to fail. And like a lot of these startups with just a few people are starting to grow really fast and thrive. But like if you look, like there are some businesses that have lived for a long time that are still thriving, and there are others like startups with small people that have really good ideas that aren't taking off at all. So I've studied a lot of this, and if you understand what the kind of key is that determines like who's going to succeed and who's going to fail, is a lot of companies are shifting from being product based, like, oh well, we sell, you know, Kleenex, or we sell vacuum, or we sell whatever it is. Like a lot of these companies have sold the same thing over and over for a long time, but they're transitioning. Like people that have still tried to like just like violently force society to keep like buying their product and like keeping the product the same, a lot of these companies are failing. But then like companies that are transitioning into like culture-based communities that are saying like, we have this community. What does our community want, and how can we respond to the needs and desires of our community to use the resources that we have to develop what they're asking for? And like, you know, if we do the same, if we're basically doing the same thing, it's like we're, you know, merging together, creating culture, taking the resources that we have to say, what are the pains and the desires that the people that we love and the people that we're surrounded by have, and how can we use what we have to solve that? And now once we do that, we create trust and we create circularity that's now pulling more together. But if we make it about ourselves and we make it specifically about our product and like what we created, rather than making it about our people and how we can solve their problems, then, you know, it'll fail every time. But I think, you know, a lot of that is why, you know, we've been able to grow and find this resonance between what we're doing, is because, you know, we're listening to each other. We're sharing the value from our hearts, and we're, you know, creating this ecosystem and this, you know, equilibrium. And it's just like up until now, I think, you know, we didn't necessarily explicitly put a name on it. We just were doing it. But now it's like we're waking up and realizing what's happening. And it's beautiful. And it's like there's this tapestry of life and energy and consciousness that once this whole tapestry was known and shared by everybody. And over time that got ripped apart through war and like desire to like own these great books and philosophies and power like handed down through generation. And it's like a lot of the mainstream world is still trying to fight over those pieces and rip them into smaller pieces, like inherit, like their children inherit it, and you get half and you get half, and like this power structure is continuing to divide smaller and smaller. But we started out, we inherited these tiny fragments, but by connecting with each other and saying, here, I'm going to share my fragment with you, we started to stitch all of those back together, and now the tapestry's coming to life, and we have this big beautiful thing that we've all woven together. And it's like, now that lives in you, it lives in me. It's like, even if I'm gone tomorrow, like you still inherit that tapestry. You're still stitching it all together. Even if you're gone, everybody that's here, they're all carrying it. It's not about me taking my fragment and standing on that like some kind of pedestal and trying to dominate the world from that higher ground, but it's about how can we all lift each other up and stitch this together. And I think that's why we've been able to come to where we are, and why there's so much resonance between what we have is because we've been sharing our love and our sentiments and everything all along. Even though if it just seems like little pieces, it's really those archetypal pieces that are at the blueprint, at the core of everything. We're sharing seeds, and now we have these giant fruit trees that that are bearing similar fruit. So it's like it's heritage, man. We've passed it on.
See, brother, I just caught you right there. You said that you've been in the mind a lot and you haven't been moving through the heart as much, but I think I just caught you right there. Caught you in the act.
I guess everything is relative, man. Like like when you're playing out in the snow for a long time and you come and put your hands under warm water, it feels like it's boiling, So just because I guess in certain ways I've been out in the cold and haven't realized, I guess, the warmth that's already flowing,
Yeah, ashay. And that's what I'm here for. That's what this community is here for, is to remind you of the love that you are and that you've been sharing, man. And thank you for being here. It takes a lot of love, and it takes a lot of courage and will to want to step onto Alive and be a part of this online series for the history of however long in humanity this will be present. And you have now put your signature into this series, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I really appreciate the space. I appreciate you and everything you're doing, man. It's a beautiful journey.
So as we wrap up, I guess my final question to wrap up is, what can we do to help support you on these projects and visions that you have?
And I think the best thing is just like, all of us coming together, supporting each other, like just creating community, getting to know each other, building trust, sharing the love with others. And I think there's a lot of like chaos in the world in a relative sense, like there's a lot of weird things happening, and there's a lot of people that are feeling afraid and frustrated and confused. And I think the most important thing is like, if you feel hope, if you feel peace, if you feel strength and courage, like hold on to that and cultivate it and try to share it with another. And if you feel that fading away, reach out to somebody and, you know, find support to strengthen that foundation. Let them put a spoke in your wheel, create stability, you know, just live from that space. You know, there's a million right answers, but at the end of the day, you know, seek stability, share stability, create wholeness, create, you know, love. That's what it's all about. So
Beautifully said. Thank you. And for everybody out there that may want to ask you questions or reach out to you, if you're open to it, where can they find you at?
yeah, of course, man. So I mean, I don't use Instagram a whole lot, but I mean, I guess if people want to message me on here, I could start, you know, checking it more. Just because I haven't used it a lot doesn't mean I can't. But also, I'm usually more on with like my Facebook, and so I created a new Facebook page not too long ago, and it's just a regular Facebook like profile, like it would be a person, but the name is like SO space URCE space channels. So anyone can add me there. And the only reason it's like that, it's not anything like esoteric, but you know, when you create a regular Facebook profile, they won't let you like do it as a business, so they make sure it's like a real name. So my name is So Earth Channels.
Nice. Okay. And I'll go ahead and type that down below, and I'll also put it LinkedIn in the description on the full episode on YouTube on Tuesday.
All right, right on, brother. I appreciate it.
And for everybody out there, thank you all for tapping in that have been here in the live space, showing support and love for myself and our brother, our authentic soul guest, Brandon Jones. The full episode of episode 7 of Process of Clearing Layers, Alchemy, Entrepreneur, will be uploaded and premiering on YouTube, Sacred Light Healing and Wellness at 8 p.m. Eastern. And you'll be able to catch this live along with any back images, backstories, and any other information regarding the topics that were talked about today, so you can get visual presentations of what these look like. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave your comments in the down below of the YouTube channel once it comes up and is streaming. And you can also reach out to myself as well as Brandon here at source.channels on Instagram. And be on the lookout. We will have some Zoom classes coming up talking about ways of the alchemy of the mind and how you can become a self-master of the mind and start putting balance and harmony into your life through these different multidimensional aspects of ourself. So that is it for now, and I will be live next Sunday again for the next episode, and I will see you all then. Brandon, thank you for being our authentic soul guest this Sunday, and I will talk to you soon, brother.
Thank you for having me, brother. Blessings.
Great honor. Wholeness and balanced love, everybody.
Many levels like Inception. I stared into the eyes of darkness and found my reflection. When I look set my eyes in the mirror, I swear to God I can fly. Too many fears holding me back. Tell me why. Feels like life's pulling me in one direction. Till I found the strength in me and my reflection. When I look inside my eyes in the mirror, I swear to God I can fly. Too many fears holding me back. Tell me why. Feels like life's pulling me in one direction. Till I found the strength in me and my reflection. Seems like every day we're challenged to be the best that we can be, but we can't see that we were destined to be free. Free from our minds, free from this money, free of this time, wishing we could stay young, but son,